I want to thank the organizers of this remarkable program for inviting me to participate. It is such an honor and a privilege to do so, because this is a program dedicated to sharing the teachings of the Lubavitcher Rebbe of blessed memory in his sichas, to share it with as many people as possible. And that is a privilege to participate in, to share his wisdom and his learning with so many people and his vision. And it is also an extra privilege and schus, an honor, to be able to participate because this program is being conducted in honor of Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks of blessed memory, and to pay tribute to him. And that is a special privilege to participate for that reason as well, because Rabbi Sacks was a dear personal friend of my own. I feel so heartbroken at his passing. And so many people around the world do, because he impacted the lives of so many through his teachings. And he spread the light of Torah to so many people and impacted an entire generation. And so to pay tribute to him on his passing is indeed an obligation and a mitzvah on each and every single one of us. So I want to thank you for this opportunity to do so. And I was thinking, it is well known, the impact of the Lubavitcher Rebbe on Rabbi Sacks, guiding and inspiring him to take on a position of leadership. And that had such a profound impact on the Jewish world. But I was thinking that really both were incredible leaders of optimism. The sicha which we are dealing with today is from Parshas Vayechi, and in it the Lubavitcher Rebbe addresses a central question, a question of whether it's possible to be an optimist in this world in which we live. It's a world filled with darkness and confusion, moral darkness, spiritual darkness. Is redemption even possible? The Rebbe addresses. Is redemption possible? Personal redemption, national redemption, global redemption? This is a crucial question to confront, and one which is a real reflection of the spirit of the teachings of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who was such a profound optimist. His optimism was expressed in so many different ways, even in the way that he spoke. It is famously known that he would never refer to a hospital by the conventional Hebrew of as a Beit Cholim, as a house of the sick. He rather referred to it as a house of healing, and so many other examples. But that optimism was profound, not only in the words expressed, but an optimism and a faith in the future of the Jewish people. That when many people said that Torah could not be transplanted and brought to the New World, to the Western world, to America and to other places, and that its relevance had passed because in Europe it could be kept, but in the new and open democracy there would be no way for Jews to remain loyal to Torah. He believed with an optimistic passion in the Torah, in Am Yisrael, in Hashem. That optimism permeated every part of the movement which he established. And Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks was also a profound optimist, and it's not surprising because we know that he was influenced and guided by the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Rabbi Lord Sacks was an optimist who believed in the possibility of change and of a better tomorrow. His daughter Gila spoke about that at his funeral, about how her father inspired them with always a sense that if there were problems in the world, there were solutions to those problems, and that solutions could be found, and that there was a possibility for a better tomorrow. And optimism gives us hope for a better tomorrow. But it's not always easy. It can be enormously challenging and difficult. And there is a moment in this Parsha, Parshas Vayechi, where we see our forefather Yaakov Avinu, Jacob, grappling with darkness and what lay ahead for the future of the Jewish people, because he gathers around his sons in order to bless them. And the Parsha gives two expressions of it. It says, Vayikra Yaakov el banav, Jacob called to his sons, Vayomer, and he said to them, He'asvu va'agida lachem, gather together and I will tell you what will happen ba'achritz hayomim, at the end of days. And then the next verse says, Hikabtzu, also gather, Veshimu, and listen, Bnei Yaakov. And the Rebbe in the sicha refers to the words of Rashi here, quoting from the Gemara in Psachim, which says that Bikesh Yaakov legalos esakates, Jacob wanted to reveal the end. He wanted to reveal the redemption. V'nistalka shchina mimenu. But the divine presence was taken away from him, and therefore he couldn't tell them. Because as the Rebbe points out, Rashi is a commentator who always looks for the interpretation as it emerges from a simple reading of the text. And he says that Rashi saw within this text that there were two messages that Jacob wanted to give to his children, because it mentions twice. It says, gather and I will tell you, and then again it says, gather and you will listen. And he says the second time that refers to the blessings that he gave to his children. But the first time, what was he telling them then? There's no record of it in the Chumash. And that's why Rashi brings in the Gemara in Psachim to say, actually there was something that he wanted to tell them, but he couldn't. There were two things he wanted to tell them. He wanted to give them their blessings for the future and what the tribes and the destiny of the tribes, but he also wanted to tell them something else. But he couldn't tell them in the end. What did he want to tell them? He wanted to tell them the end of time. He wanted to tell them when the final redemption would come, and God withheld it from him. He couldn't tell his children at that crucial moment. And what is the depth of that? You see, Jacob was looking at the future of his children. He was looking at the future of the destiny of Am Yisrael, of the Jewish people, of all of their descendants. And he saw ahead there would be times of good and prosperity, but there would also be times of darkness and suffering. And he was looking and peering into the future. And obviously, as a father, he wants his children to be fine, and he wanted to tell them there's an end to this journey. And he wanted to tell them when that end would be, but he couldn't tell them. Bikesh Yaakov legalos es haketz. He wanted to give the end point. Don't we all want to know, when will that final redemption come? When will the travails of history be over? Yaakov wanted to tell them and he couldn't. But the Lubavitcher Rebbe points out something very important here, which is profoundly optimistic. And he says this: when a tzaddik, when a righteous person, when a great person, certainly like Yaakov Avinu, when he requests something from God, when he prays for something, when he wants something, then even if that request is not granted by God, nevertheless the spiritual impact of it is, there is an element of his request which is granted. Something is granted. And that has an impact through the generations. That has a lasting inspiration and light for all future generations. And so what the Lubavitcher Rebbe says in this sicha is that indeed Yaakov wanted to reveal the end, but he gave his children, all of us, all of the generations that came from him, he gave us all a connection to Geula, to redemption. He couldn't give it to his children at that moment. They weren't at the right spiritual level, our sages teach us. So he couldn't give it to them then. But through the generations, he gave them a connection to redemption. He gave us a connection to redemption. Because Yaakov wanted it for us, Hashem granted it through all of the generations. And so we can access redemption, even in a time of darkness and confusion, even in a time of spiritual confusion and darkness, and perhaps especially in such a time. The Rebbe quotes from the Gemara in Sanhedrin that says that Mashiach ben David, the Redeemer, will come through Hesech Hadas, when we have set aside our minds from him. And he asked, what can that mean? Hesech Hadas means literally when we've taken our minds off him and we're not thinking about him. But he said, that can't be. How can that be literally interpreted when in fact there's a mitzvah to believe in the coming of Mashiach and in the final redemption? We know that when a person goes up to the Beis Din Shel Ma'ala, goes up to the heavenly court to give an account for their lives, one of the questions that we are asked is, Tzipisili Yeshua, did you long for the redemption? We need to long for the redemption. It's one of the 13 principles of faith to believe in the coming of Mashiach. So how can it be that the coming of Mashiach is connected to this Hesech Hadas, to removing our minds from him? So he says, no, Hesech Hadas means something else. It means living in a world of confusion, a world without das, a world without knowledge, a world without faith, a world without divine wisdom. And when one is in the midst of all of that, there is still the possibility for redemption. Because if we have faith and clarity, even in the midst of that confusion, that merit will bring redemption. But redemption, explains the Rebbe, is multifaceted and multi-layered. There is personal redemption, there is national redemption, and then there's the redemption of the whole world. Of course, we know what redemption, when Mashiach comes and the entire world is redeemed and Hashem's presence is revealed, it will be a time, as the prophet Isaiah says, where the knowledge of Hashem will fill the earth Like the waters cover the oceans and we have an entire globe filled with water, so too the presence of Hashem will fill the entire world. And the entire world will know we'll live in a different era. And that's an era of blessing and abundance. And we long for that. See, peace in Yeshua, we long for that redemption. But the Rebbe explains in the sicha that redemption is also very personal. It is about our own lives. We can access redemption in our own lives. What is redemption? Freedom. Freedom. Because freedom is not just a political value of what your political rights are in society. That's one element. It's an important blessing to have. And we can never underestimate it. So many generations of Jews suffered because they didn't have political freedom. But freedom is so much more profound. It is personal. It touches on the heart and soul of who we are. It is freedom, he says, from the Yetzer Hara. Freedom from all of that negativity which drags us down. Why does the Rebbe call it freedom? Why is it that when we do good, when we do mitzvahs, when we overcome temptation, when we overcome all of the influences and the confusion around us, and we connect to Hashem's light and Hashem's wisdom, why is that called freedom? It's called freedom because we are returning to who we really are. You know, when you're imprisoned, then you're constrained. You have a foreign force, other people who are constraining you. It's a sense, an alien presence, which limits our movement and who we can be. And what the Rebbe is saying in the most profoundly optimistic way is that he is saying that when we are in harmony with the will of Hashem, when we are connected to the wisdom and the light of Hashem, then we are ourselves. That is who we are. That's why we are truly free. When we are living with that, we are truly free. And that is redemption. Redemption brings freedom. We always say on Pesach, Pesach is the time of redemption. But what is the defining essence of Pesach? Zman Cheruseinu, the time of our freedom. Redemption and freedom are two sides of the same entity. And that's why the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, Ein lecha ben chorim ela misha osek b'Torah. The only true free person is the person who is connected and involved and engaged with Torah and its wisdom. Freedom is redemption, and redemption is freedom. And redemption can be personal, and redemption can be national for Am Yisrael, for the Jewish people, and we can access it. And of course, redemption is global for the entire world, but we can access part of that freedom. Of course, the final freedom and the final redemption will be only when that final redemption comes to the world, but even before then, Jacob, Yaakov, all of those generations ago, when he gathered around his children and he desperately, as a father, wanted to share with them the end. He wanted to share with them and say it will be okay, this long journey that lies ahead with its triumphs and its pain. There is an end and there's a redemption, and as a father, he desperately wanted to share that. Bikesh Yaakov legalos es haketz, he wanted to share that, and Hashem didn't grant him that request. But Hashem did grant him something from it. That his request did not go unanswered. His request to Hashem was fulfilled through the generations, that God has given each and every single one of us and every generation access to the end, access to Geula, access to redemption. As individuals, as communities, as Am Yisrael, as the Jewish people, as every human being has access to that freedom, to that connection to Hashem, and that is profoundly optimistic. What does all of this mean to us? It means that we need to live as optimists. We need to be inspired by the optimism of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. We need to be inspired by the optimism of Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks. We need to be inspired by their optimism. And we need to be inspired with our faith in ourselves. We have faith in Hashem, but we need to remember Hashem believes in us. And that we have schus avos. We have this incredible merit of the generations, where Yaakov Avinu, Jacob, our forefather, he believed in us. He begged Hashem to give that connection to Geula, to redemption, to his sons and to the generations of Jews that would come after. And through his intervention, we have that. We have access to redemption and to freedom, to be able to connect ourselves to Hashem and to his wisdom, and to spread righteousness and goodness and mitzvahs and light in the world, and to make this world into a better place. And that is what Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks did. He spread the light of Hashem to every corner of the globe, showing the greatness and the majesty of Torah. And he did that with a spirit of optimism and a faith and a belief in the beauty and the magnificence of the Torah and the power of its light, an inspiration that he learned from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And what we need to take from this sicha is a sense of going forward into the future with an optimistic faith in the future of the Jewish people and an optimistic faith in ourselves, to know that redemption is within our grasp, freedom is within our grasp, wisdom and light of Hashem is within our grasp. That is how we can create a better today and a better tomorrow. May the memory of the Lubavitcher Rebbe and may the memory of Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks be a blessing and an inspiration for us all.